Okay, let's unpack. I want you to picture a massive, slumbering giant. And when I say giant, I'm not talking about, some creature from a fantasy novel.
Right.
I'm talking about a media property, franchise, that for, a solid decade and a half was the absolute backbone of televised science fiction.
Oh, easily. We are talking about 17 seasons of television, 3 distinct shows running concurrently or, back to back, 2 direct-to-DVD movies.
There was an animated series we try not to talk about.
We do not talk about that one.
Yeah.
But you had merchandise, you had conventions, and a fandom that is, as loyal as they come, but for the last several years...
It's been quiet. Too quiet.
It has been dormant. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of the entertainment industry right now, that dormancy is, it's incredibly strange. We are living in what industry analysts call the IP gold rush.
The IP gold rush. It sounds like a reality show about, patent lawyers.
It sounds dry, but it drives everything you watch. IP stands for intellectual property. And in the current media landscape, marketing a brand new idea nobody has ever heard of is astronomically expensive.
And risky.
So risky. So every studio, and I mean every single one, is digging through their archives, their IP vaults, trying to find anything with a recognizable name to reboot, remake, or spin-off. If the audience already knows the name, you've just saved $50 million in marketing.
Right. That's why we have 30 Marvel movies and 12 Batmans.
Yeah.
But this specific giant Stargate has just been sleeping under the mountain while everyone else is scrambling for content.
Exactly. But the seismographs are finally starting to twitch. The giant is waking up.
Finally.
We are talking, of course, about Stargate. And here is where it gets really interesting. The news is breaking that Amazon, who, they bought MGM, the rights holder, is finally moving forward with a new series.
And this isn't just a maybe rumor anymore, is it? This feels real. The gears are turning. The writer's room is purportedly open.
It's happening.
But this revival comes at a very precarious moment in pop culture history. We've seen this movie before, haven't we?
Oh, we have many times.
We've seen Star Wars come back. We've seen Star Trek come back. We've seen Doctor Who, Willow, Lord of the Rings. And frankly, a lot of them have stumbled hard.
Stumbled is putting it politely. The track record for reviving 30-year-old franchises in the 2020s is volatile. There is a central tension that every one of these productions faces.
What's that?
How do you balance the need to be modern, to attract that elusive new audience, with the obligation to honor the lore and the people who have kept the flame alive for decades?
And that right there, that is the mission of today's deep dive. We aren't just looking at casting rumors or, plot leaks. We are analyzing a specific deep dive video by sci-fi author John Delarose.
The video is titled, "The New Stargate Continues to Give Fans Real Hope."
And the key word there is hope.
It absolutely. Delarose believes that, unlike some of its competitors, Stargate might actually be poised to get this right. And his optimism, it really hinges on a specific philosophy championed by former Stargate producer Joseph Mallozzi.
We're calling it the Mallozzi Doctrine. It's all about fan respect. So the question we're exploring is this. In a world where subverting expectation is the Hollywood trend, is Stargate going to be the radical rebel by actually just giving the fans what they want?
It is a fascinating question, and I think the answer is more complex than it sounds. Let's dive in.
So before we get into the philosophy, the big ideas, we need to look at the hard facts, the production. What is Amazon actually building here? Because, new Stargate could mean anything.
Well, according to the source, the green light has been officially lit. Amazon has commissioned a new Stargate, and this is the big one. As of the recording of the source material, the writer's room had just commenced operations.
Which is huge.
It's a massive step. It moves us from the realm of, wouldn't it be nice if, to people are currently being paid to write scripts.
The checks are clearing.
Exact. But with a new corporate overlord, Amazon, comes a new corporate structure. And this is the first point of friction our source identifies. It's the episode count.
Ah, yes, the season length.
Yes. And this is where we have to get into the weeds of sort of screenwriting mechanics. If you remember the golden age of Stargate, SG-1, or Atlantis, or even something like Star Trek, the next generation,
of course,
the industry standard was the 22-episode season.
Oh, I remember. It was a marathon. You had a new episode almost every single week for, half the year. It became part of your routine. You'd order pizza, sit down, and just, hang out with the SG-1 team.
It was an appointment.
It was. But honestly, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Isn't the 22-episode model kind of obsolete?
Obsolete how? Curious.
Well, let's be real. In a 22-episode season, maybe 10 of them were amazing, right? The big arc episodes.
Yeah.
But you also had the filler episode. You had the ones where they just recycled the set to save money or the plot was thin. Isn't the modern model all killer, no filler, actually better for a viewer who values their time?
See, that is the standard studio argument. And visually or budget-wise, you are absolutely right. The money is more concentrated. But our source, John Del Eros, he pushes back on this hard.
How so?
He argues that filler is a misnomer. He views those lower-stakes episodes as the connective tissue of a show.
Connective tissue. Explain that.
Okay, think about its structure. In the industry, we distinguish between episodic and serialized storytelling. The old Stargate was fundamentally episodic.
Right. Monster of the week.
Monster of the week. The plot reset every week. The bad guy was defeated. The team went home. Because the plot reset, the writers had to rely on character dynamics to keep you coming back. You didn't tune in just to see if the goals were defeated this week. You tuned in to see Jack O'Neill make a joke, or to see Teal raise an eyebrow, or to see Daniel nerd out about some ancient culture.
You tuned in for the hangout vibe. The family.
The hangout vibe. Now look at the modern model, the prestige TV model that Amazon and Netflix, 8 to 10 episodes. This is serial. It is, for all intents and purposes, a 10-hour movie cut into strips.
That's a good way to put it.
And in that model, every single scene must advance the central plot, the A plot. If a scene doesn't move the story forward, it gets cut in, or it never gets written in the first.
So you lose the B plot.
You lose the B plot. And more importantly, you lose the breathing room. Del Eros argues that when you condense a season to 8 episodes, you inevitably sacrifice time with the characters. You lose the moments where they were just, eating blue jello in the commissary or playing golf through the Stargate.
Window of opportunity. That's the time loop episode where O'Neill and Teal play golf through the active gate.
Yeah.
That is arguably the best episode of the entire series, and it does absolutely nothing to advance the war against the goal.
Zero.
Precise. Under a modern 8-episode Amazon mandate, window of opportunity would likely never be written. A producer would look at that script and say, this is a waste of our visual effects budget and our time. Cut it.
And you'd lose the heart of the show.
You would. The source argues that those episodes are where the audience falls in love with the character. It's where the SG-1 family is built. If the characters are just sprinting to save the world for 8 straight hours, they are just coworkers. But if they have time to be bored together, to prank each other, to get stuck in a time loop together, they become a family.
That's a really coworkers versus family. And if we look at some of the new sci-fi shows that have failed recently, a lot of them do feel like, well, just people working a job to move a plot.
It creates a hollow feeling. The visual effects are better than ever, the acting is great, but you don't know the people on the screen. So what does this mean for the new Stargate? Are we just doomed to a less personal
thing? Amazon is not going to do 22 episodes. That business model for this kind of big budget streaming show is dead.
So we're stuck with the sprint.
We are. The source kind of reaches a stage of acceptance on this. He admits, this is what we got. And look, if they do it right, 8-10 great episodes is better than 0.
Absolutely.
But he frames it as a massive challenge to the writers. If you only have 10 episodes, you have to work 3 times as hard to make the audience care about the team as cared about Sam Carter or Daniel Jackson or John Shepard.
You have to weave that character bonding into the high-stakes plot itself. Incredibly difficult writing.
So difficult. You can't just have a standalone episode to do it. Every moment has to do double duty.
Okay, so we have a huge structural challenge. The format itself is working against that old-school, cozy feel. If the structure is modern and rigid, then the only thing that can save the soul of the show is the philosophy of the people running it.
And that brings us directly to the core of this deep dive, the Malazzi doctrine.
Joseph Malazzi. If you watched Stargate, you saw his name on the screen constantly.
Yeah.
Writer, executive producer. I mean, he was there for the long haul through SG-1, Atlantis, SGU.
He is deeply connected to the DNA of the show. He lived and breathed it for over a decade. And recently, he's been very vocal in interviews. The source highlights a specific quote from Malazzi that really sets the tone for. He said, and paraphrase, "If you turn off the established fan base, there will be problems for you down the line."
Now, hold on. That sounds like business 101. Don't annoy your customers. Why is this considered a philosophy? Isn't it just common sense?
You would absolutely think so. It seems obvious, right? But the source argues that in the current Hollywood landscape, specifically in the genre of horror, this is actually a radical, almost rebellious.
Explain that. Why is being nice to fans a radical act? That seems crazy to me.
Because of what the source identifies as a prevailing attitude of hostility among modern.
Hostility. That's a strong word.
It is, but he backs it up. He names names. He specifically calls out figures like Kathleen Kennedy, Alex Kurtzman at Star Trek, and Russell T. Davies at Doctor Who.
Okay, so what is the specific criticism? Is it just that the source, Del Eras, doesn't like their show? Because that's just a matter of taste.
It goes deeper than he describes an attitude of not for. He argues that there is a trend where creators take an established intellectual property, something with 40 or 50 years of history and lore, and they fundamentally change
to suit modern sensibilities or their own personal interests, maybe.
Exactly. And look, that's their prerogative as creatives. Sure, you can argue that art needs to evolve, but, and here is the kicker, when the old school fans when the people who bought the DVDs and went to the convention say, hey, this doesn't feel like Star Wars, the response from the studio and sometimes the creators is, well, aggressive.
It's the, if you don't like it, you're the problem response. It's the, you're a bigot, sexist, nostalgia-blinded man-child response.
That's the one. Exactly. The source quotes actor Robert Picardo here.
The doctor from Star Trek. Voyager, a legend.
An absolute legend. And Picardo commented on the upcoming Starfleet Academy show. His advice was simple and, I think, brilliant. He said, don't make a show that offends and insults the fans by being low-bar stupid.
Low-bar stupid. I love that.
He argues that you shouldn't insult the intelligence of the audience that put you on the map in the first place. These are people who love this world, who know it inside and out. You can't just lie to them about what it is.
The source uses a really heavy word to describe this dynamic. He calls it gaslight. Now, that's a clinical psychological term. Is it fair to use it for a TV show?
In this context, he's using it to describe a corporate marketer. Let's use an analogy to explain what he means, because I think it clarifies it.
Go for it.
Imagine you have a favorite steakhouse. You've gone there for 20 years. You love the ribeye. It's famous for the ribeye.
Okay, I'm hungry already. Go on.
New management buys the steakhouse. They decide that steak is outdated, problematic. They turn it into a vegan cafe.
Fine. Their choice.
Their choice. But, and this is the crucial part, they keep the sign that says the old steakhouse out front. They keep the cowboy decor. They keep the name because it has brand recognition.
So I walk in expecting a steak and they hand me a kale salad.
Exactly. And when you say, hey, excuse me, I ordered a steak, the manager comes out and yells at you. He tells you that you're stuck in the past, that you're narrow-minded for wanting meat, and that this kale salad is the modern version of steak. And if you were smarter, you'd understand that.
And he'd say the original steakhouse was always about kale salads, and I just didn't notice.
Yes, that denial of reality, telling the customer that their memory of the product is wrong or invalid, is what the source calls corporate gaslighting.
That puts it in perfect perspective. It's not just about changing the product. It's about blaming the customer for noticing the change.
Correct. And the source brings up a very specific real-world example from the gaming world to illustrate corporate hostility. He talks about Warhammer.
The tabletop game with the little paint. The grim, dark future.
There was a controversy back in 2020 regarding some changes to the lore. Again, we can set aside the specific politics. The point, the communication strategy is what matters.
What do they do?
Games Workshop, the company, released a statement, and in that statement, they effectively said that if fans didn't agree with their new direction, they will not be.
Wow. You will not be missed.
Yeah.
That's not just hostile. That's a declaration of divorce. That's telling a paying customer, go away. We don't want your money anymore.
And that is the exact attitude the source is contrasting with Joseph Malazzi. Malazzi is signaling that he does not want to tell fans they will be missed. He is prioritizing goodwill.
He understands that the legacy audience is the foundation. If you burn the foundation, the whole house collapses. But playing devil's advocate again, studios aren't doing this just to be mean, right? There's a business reason. They're chasing the modern audience. They want the millions of people who didn't watch Stargate 20 years ago.
That is the gamble. You're absolutely right. They are betting that the new audience is larger and more valuable than the old audience. But the source argues that this modern audience is often a mirage.
A mirage, how?
It's fickle. They watch one season on a streamer and then they move on to Bridgerton or Squid Game or whatever the next big thing is. The old audience, they buy the encyclopedias, they buy the ship models, they subscribe for 10 years just to have access to the show. Malazzi seems to understand that you can't trade a loyal army for a fleeting crowd.
However, this brings us to a really nuanced point, because respecting the fans doesn't mean never change anything.
No, of course not.
If you just do the exact same show from 1997, it's going to feel stale. It'll look dated. You have to evolve.
And this is where the source makes a critical distinction between evolution and deconstruction. And he uses a very controversial example from Stargate's own history to make his point. Stargate Universe.
Oh boy, SGU. I remember when that came out in 2009. The fandom went to war over that show.
It was a polarizing time, to say the least.
For those who didn't see it, SG-1 and Atlantis were fun. They were adventure shows. They were optimistic. SGU was dark. It was gritty. The camera was shaking all the time. The lights were always off. Everyone was angry at each other.
It was very clearly trying to be the Battlestar Galactica reboot.
Totally. And at the time, many fans hated it. They called it Stargate 90210, or just boring because it was so slow-paced compared to the others. It got canceled after 2 seasons.
It did. But here's the fascinating twist. The source, John Del Arroz, argues that in retrospect, SGU was brilliant. And more importantly, he argues it was respectful.
Okay, hold on. How can it be respectful if it was so different that it alienated people at the time? That sounds contradictory.
Because of what he calls the DS9 analogy. Think about Star Trek. You had the next generation shiny ship, perfect crew, a utopian vision of the future.
Right.
Then you had Deep Space Nine, a dirty, captured space station, war, politics, morally gray characters. A lot of TNG fans didn't like it at first.
But DS9 is beloved now. It's considered by many to be the best Trek.
Exactly. And why? Because DS9 never broke the rules of the universe. It didn't say Picard was wrong. It didn't say the Federation is secretly evil. It just said, hey, out here on the frontier, things are harder, the ideals are tested. It added to the tapestry without...
I see. So the argument is that SGU did the same thing for Stargate. It didn't rewrite the history of the Stargate program or how the tech works. It just showed a different kind of mission, one that went terribly wrong.
Correct. The source argues that SGU didn't put a middle finger to the lore. It didn't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. It respected the physics and the history of the universe. It just changed the tone. It was an evolution.
Contrast that with what the source calls anti-fan con.
Yeah, he compares the SU model to things like The Acolyte in Star Wars or some of the Star Trek. He argues that those shows often feel like they are actively fighting against the established constraints of their own universe.
How so?
They deconstruct the heroes, making them seem foolish or corrupt. They change the fundamental rules of how the Force works or how warp drive works just to serve a single plot point, ignoring decades of established canon. That's deconstruction. That's taking a hammer to the foundation.
So the lesson for Amazon is you can make Stargate dark. You can make it funny. You can make it a horror show, for all I care. But you cannot break the underlying reality that was built over 17 seasons.
Precisely. You can renovate the house. You can paint the walls a crazy color. But if you knock out the load-bearing walls, the established lore, the roof falls. And Joseph Mallozzi is one of the artists. He knows where all those walls are.
Speaking of renovations, let's talk about the biggest temptation every studio executive faces when they get their hands on an old prop. The reboot, the clean slate.
This is the danger zone. This is where most of them...
I can just hear the pitch meeting now. Boss, this show has 30 years of baggage, 17 seasons. New viewers don't want to do homework. Let's just reboot it. Start from scratch. New Jack O'Neill, new Stargate Discovery. It'll be easy.
It is the clean slate temptation, and you can see why it's so seductive for marketing teams. You get to put a fresh, young cast on the poster.
But Mallozzi is pushing back against it hard.
Very hard. He acknowledges the temptation, he understands it, but he warns against destroying the reality that fans fell in love with. He specifically references The Matrix Resurrections as a giant warning.
Oh, the movie. That was something.
Whether you liked it or not, Mallozzi cites it as an example of what not. In his view, that film deconstructed the original trilogy to the point where it made the original stories feel disposable.
It felt like a meta-commentary on reboots that, in the process, ended up invalidating the emotional investment fans had in Neo and Trinity's original journey.
It's the feeling of, oh, so none of that mattered after all.
Yeah.
And if you tell your audience the thing you loved didn't matter, they stop trusting. They won't come back for the next. So if you don't reboot, what do? Stargate has been off the air for a long time. You can't just pick up the day after Atlantis ended. The actors have all aged.
The source suggests the next generation model.
Referring, of course, to Star Trek, The Next Generation. Think about how that show handled the transition from the Kirk era. It didn't erase Kirk. It didn't pretend the 60s show didn't happen. It just moved the timeline forward 80 years.
And in Stargate's case, it's been about 30 years since the original movie, and maybe 15 years since the last show went off the air. So the new show should reflect that time jump.
Use the gap. Acknowledge that time has passed. The world is different. The Stargate program has surely evolved. Maybe it's no longer a top-secret military project under a mountain. Maybe it's a massive off-world operation now.
And that allows you to create new characters for the audience to fall in love with, the new crew.
Yes, but the old heroes are still out there. They are legends of the past. Jack O'Neill is a retired 4-star general. Sam Carter is probably running the entire off-world science division. Daniel Jackson wrote the book on ancient cultures.
And this is where we get into the cameo strategy, because there is a right way and a wrong way to do this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You don't want the member berries effect from South Park. where you just trot out an old actor to say their catchphrase and then they leave.
No, that is cheap nostalgia, and audiences see right through it.
Yeah.
You want the Star Trek model from TNG, specifically the episodes Relics or Unification.
Relics is the one where they find Scotty from the original series trapped in a transporter buffer.
Yeah, and Unification is the two-parter where Spock appears on Romulus. These were massive season-defining events. They happened once every 20 or 30 episodes.
And when Spock showed up, it meant something to the plot. He wasn't just there to wave at the camera. He was there to advance the story of Romulan unity. It was integral.
It respects continuity without relying on it as a credit. And the source believes this is the path that the new Stargate is taking, a continuation, a passing of the torch.
Which is a huge relief to me, personally. I don't want to see a 25-year-old actor trying to do a bad impression of Richard Dean Anderson.
Yeah.
I want to see what Richard Dean Anderson's character, Jack O'Neill, is doing as a retired general in his 70s.
He's probably fishing in a pond that he knows has no fish in it.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're keeping the continuity, we're respecting the history, but that creates its own set of problems, doesn't it? We can call these narrative debts.
Narrative debts. I like that phrasing. That's very good.
Stargate left a lot of checks uncashed before it went off the air. Stargate Universe ended on a massive cliffhanger. The crew went into stasis pods, and the ship jumped into the void between galaxies.
We never found out what happened.
And Atlantis ended with a giant alien city parked cloaked in the San Francisco Bay. You can't just ignore that stuff.
And there is a fear, a very justified fear among fans, that the new show might just wave a magic wand and resolve all that in a line of throwaway dialogue.
The off-screen trap. Malazi says he hates.
He specifically mentions the idea of resolving the Stargate program's secrecy off-screen as, like, a cardinal sin.
Oh, that would be the worst.
Imagine if the pilot episode of the new show starts and a character just says, "Man, ever since the president revealed the Stargate to the public 10 years ago, traffic has been crazy."
That would be terrible. I would turn it off. The revelation of the Stargate to the world is the biggest narrative card the franchise has left to play. You have to show it.
You have to show the panic, the news reports, the religious upheaval, the chaos.
That's a whole season of television right there.
Exactly. If you do it off screen, you rob the audience of the moment they have been waiting 20 years to see. It's just lazy.
Or specifically regarding Stargate Universe and the ship Destiny. If a character just says, "Oh yeah, we found the Destiny crew a few years back, they're fine now," that's a slap in the face to everyone who watched that show.
It is what I'd call a breach of contract. When a writer introduces Helling Mystery, they are signing an implicit contract, and that contract says, if you give me your attention, I will give you satisfying resonance.
And if you resolve it in a text crawl or a throwaway line, you have broken that contract.
And the audience will never trust you again. The source points out that SG-1 was a 10-season phenomenon, specifically because it paid off story, even if it...
Think about the Asgard, little gray alien. They were allies for 10 seasons.
For a decade.
And when their story ended, it ended on screen. We saw their planet explode. We saw them hand over their entire legacy of knowledge. It was tragic, and it was beautiful, and it was earned.
Or the Ori. We spent 2 full years fighting them. We saw the final battle. The rule is simple. If fans invested time in a mystery, the writers owe them a satisfying on-screen. Cannot hand-wave the things that people care about just because they are inconvenient script.
I love that concept. Narrative integrity. Okay, moving on to the setting. Because Stargate has a very specific vibe that makes it different from Trek or Wars, and the source argues that the new show needs to absolutely nail this setting to succeed.
Stargate is grounded in the now.
Right. Star Wars is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's pure fantasy. Star Trek is the 24th century. It's a utopia, a goal to strive. Stargate is Tuesday.
It's next Tuesday. The entire conceit of the show, the magic of it is, what if this is happening right now? What if, while you were listening to this, there's a team of people in Air Force fatigues stepping through a shimmering ring under Cheyenne Mountain?
And that grounding is what makes it so relatable. The characters don't speak in, Shakespearean sci-fi jargon. They talk like us. They reference The Simpsons. They complain about their paychecks and the bad food in the mess hall.
But that now setting creates a massive logical problem for a show set in 2024. We can call it the technology paradox.
The source brings this up, and it's a big one. Stargate Command has been bringing back alien technology for 30 years. They have hyperdrives, energy shields, teleportation, anti-gravity, zero-point energy modules.
Basically magic.
It's magic. So if they have all that, why are we still driving gas-powered cars? Why does the world look exactly the same as it did in 1997, just with better phones?
It creates a major suspension of disbelief. In most sci-fi, if you introduce free, limitless energy, society transforms overnight. Stargate has to maintain a masquerade. They have to justify why the world looks like our world, despite having the tech of the 31st century.
So how do they explain it? Because if they just ignore it, the whole thing feels fake.
The explanation, and the source seems to think the new show will and must stick to this, is that the military conspiracy is just that good. They keep it secret as best they possibly can. The deepest. They trickle down some of the less disruptive tech. Maybe that's why our cell phones got so much better so fast, or why MRI machines are faster now. But the big stuff, the stuff that would topple economies and start,
that stays locked up in Area 51.
or Area 52, or some off-world base. It's a very delicate balance. You have to believe the military is competent enough to hide a literal galactic war from 8 billion people with cameras.
And frankly, in the age of smartphones and TikTok and private satellite companies, that's getting harder and harder to believe.
It is. And that tension, the breaking point of the secret, might be a key theme of the new show. But maintaining that grounded reality is what allows viewers to connect. These aren't people born in a post-scarcity utopia where money doesn't...
No, they're people who pay taxes, watch football, and then go fight false gods on other planets before clocking out.
And that contrast is the heart and soul of Stargate.
It really is. It's blue-collar sci-fi. Okay, I want to pivot to something really cool that the source dug up. Segment 7 in our outline, The Lost History.
The canceled Stargate Atlantis movie. This is a painful what-if for the hardcore. It's a real source.
Right, for context, when Atlantis was canceled, the plan was to make a direct-to-DVD movie to wrap it all up. It was even titled Stargate Extinction. But because the DVD market completely collapsed around 2010, it never got made.
And Maladzi, who co-wrote it, has shared some details about the script over the years, and they are just fascinating.
They really are.
Because it gives us a window into what Stargate does best. The plot involved time travel, a classic Stargate trope, but the core of it was an unlikely alliance. The script featured John Shepard, the hero of the show, and Todd the Wraith.
Todd. We have to explain Todd, because if you don't know Todd, you're missing out on one of the best characters in the franchise.
Okay, so the Wraith are the main villains of Stargate. They are effectively space vampires. They don't drink blood. They feed on human life force through their hands. They can age you to death in seconds. They are terrifying biological predators.
And usually they're just monsters, faceless bad guy. But Todd was the friendly neighborhood space vampire.
He was a pragmatist, a survivor. He often had to work with the humans to survive a common enemy. And over time, he developed this strange, begrudging respect for Colonel.
They were frenemies.
The ultimate friend. And the source mentions that in the Extinction script, there's a scene where Shepard and Todd actually shake hands. They achieve a genuine moment of
That is such a powerful image. The human hero shaking hands with the monster who literally eats people to survive.
And this leads to something the source calls the burger analogy.
I love this. Joseph Malassi gets deeply philosophical about hamburgers.
It sounds silly, but it's actually a really profound ethical question. Malassi was discussing whether the Wraith are truly evil. Is a lion evil for Ezel? Is a Wraith evil for feeding on a human if that is the only way it can survive?
It's nature.
It's nature. And he compared to us, human. He asked the question, could you go without burger?
I mean, I could. I'd be sad about it. I love a good smash burger. But I wouldn't die. Choice.
Exactly. Malassi says, I could, but I don't know, some people can't. He's humanizing the villain's biological drive. He's suggesting that their aggression isn't born from malice, it's born from hunger. And if the problem is hunger, maybe science can solve it.
Maybe we don't have to commit genocide against them. Maybe we just need to find them a different food source.
Find them a cosmic cheeseburger.
That is the ultimate Stargate solution, isn't it? In Star Wars, you blow up the Death Star. In Stargate, you try to invent a synthetic protein so the vampires don't have to eat you, and then you blow them up if they say no and try to eat you anyway.
It's the triumph of intellect and empathy over brute force. And that is exactly the kind of nuance and character-driven storytelling we all hope to see show.
So, bringing it all home, we've looked at the production format, the Malathi Doctrine of Respect, the history of reboots, the merit of debts, and the lost story. What is the final verdict?
The source, John DeLauro, is feeling something that he says he hasn't felt for a big sci-fi franchise in a long time. And that feeling is real hope.
That's so refreshing. Usually these deep dives end with us being cynical about corporate greed or creative bankruptcy.
And look, there are reasons to be cautious, but despite the secrets, despite the episode count reduction, which is a legitimate concern, the philosophical approach being offers a life. The fact that they seem to be listening to Malath, the fact that they are seemingly avoiding, it suggests they actually understand the asset they bought.
They didn't just buy a title. They bought a universe with a soul.
And John DeLamaro's even threw his hat in the ring. He mentioned he's an available sci-fi writer. He wrote the series Justified, Saga of the Nano Templar. So, Amazon, if you need someone who actually respects the lore, he's waving his hand.
It is always good to have actual fans in the writer's room. That's how you avoid the gaslighting problem we talked about.
Absolutely. You need people who love the steakhouse working.
Yes, but let's leave the listener with a final thought to chew on. Maluncey's warning is clear, and it feels more relevant than ever. If you turn off the established fanbase, there will be problems for you down the line.
And it raises a really provocative question for everyone listening, I think. We live in this era where subverting expectations is the norm. Directors and writers love to shock us, to pull the rug out from under us.
It's seen as high art.
It is. But is fan service, and I mean fan service in the best sense of the word, continuity, respect for characters, and logical consistency, is that actually the most radical and successful creative choice a studio can make today?
We're told that fan service is a dirty word, that it's cheap, that it's uncreative, but maybe it's just good customer service. Maybe it's just good storytelling.
Can a show actually survive in the long run without its legacy fans, or are they the foundation that holds the whole building up? If you alienate the people who built the church, don't be surprised when the pews are...
Ooh, that is a mic drop moment. If you build it and you respect them, they will come. Thanks for diving deep with us into the Stargate.
Until next time.
Chevron 7, locked.